USU soccer's form states, and on the front, it's a two-sided deal right now, where it says day, whatever the date is, at the blank, and the name of the event, and insert player's name. Your son or daughter starts, operative phrase, starts to show signs of these symptoms, or there are any other symptoms you notice about the behavior or conduct of your son or daughter. And it goes through and lists a laundry list of symptoms, concussion-like symptoms. The thing on the back is where it's the player's team name, and the team official has to sign, the parent has to sign, and then they cannot return until they have a medical, MD or DO on it, which I know you've probably already covered like we've done before. But that's in the form itself. So it's not a question, well, it wasn't clear to me. Well, no, it's clear. Here it is. Not to say it's totally limited to inclusive, because concussion symptoms don't always manifest themselves immediately, but there might be certain attributes. And I think the thing that we're trying to do, we implemented this at the regionals this year, and it was a surprise for some people that there was a concussion policy that USU Soccer had. Obviously, Florida's law is a great motivator to getting people to comply. The challenge we have, and that you and your members are going to go through, is when it comes to tournament time, that's the easiest part, right? I can ensure more consistency because I have medical staff who can check them and do things. But when you're in a practice or you're in a league game, you might not have medical people there who can readily do an assessment. You as the coach, administrators are accountable to ensure that you're complying with Florida law, one, and that you're not taking on liability, two. And I've had people come to me and go, well, all you're doing is just forcing us not to disclose that we have a player who's got one, because we don't want them taking effectively the red card, they're calling it jokingly a medical red. But, where the player's out that day, they're out the next day, and they can then have to get released before they can come back to play. And I've informed people, well, the moment you make that decision, you're now assuming the full liability of that player's health and welfare, and that's not something you want to take on. Because bad things happen, lawsuits will be filed, and there will be things that will come about because you were negligent in not being safe about the deal. And I have people come to me at regionals and National Cup regionals, President's Cup regionals. You're not letting my little Jenny or Jerry play. That's not fair. He's fine or she's fine. I'm like, you know what? That wasn't what the medical team said. And I take it from them. I'm not the paid professional who says, I know how to do my test. And all we can say is a possible concussion. And that's the grounds. The possible symptoms. The symptoms that exemplify a possible concussion. Obviously, we don't have the full medical gamut that you would go to with professionals at the doctors who can verify and validate what happened. But once you've had that call, and referees are equally involved in, the player took a big hit, coach may or may not have noticed it. The referees are now going to start saying, I think this kid needs to go off to be checked. If they think there's obvious, opportunity, because at regionals, National Cup regionals in Greensboro, 22% of our major injuries were concussions this summer. Last weekend at the national championships, 9% of our injuries were concussions. The 22% was an amazing stat. I was blown away with it. But I had them try. Yes, sir.
Well, that goes back to my trigger and what triggers it. Now, I understand the coach giving the form is the trigger. Now, the referee, can he also trigger this? Can a referee say, hey, I think that this is a possible thing, therefore, effectively giving them that medical record?
If a referee believes that he's observed, this player's been playing, and suddenly the player is not quite going, but, we're in the final 2 minutes of the game, 5 minutes of the game, you just need one more goal. I'm going to leave, my great striker in because they're going to do something. That's not the right answer. Now, as a coach, you can ask, ref, I need to get them off so I can get them checked. But if you're not willing to step up and say, the player's not playing like you're supposed to, they're exhibiting signs from just a visual cue, then that's something else.
But who has the overriding authority? Let's say the referee says, hey, I think there's a problem here. The coach looks at him, runs him through the test, says, then let's say the coach says, I don't see anything exhibited, can the referee say, no, I overrule you?
That's not the coach's. The
Whose
minute
fault
you,
is it?
well, here's what's gonna happen. The minute the referee says, coach, you need to check on that kid, he doesn't seem right. And you pull him out of the field and say, you felt my finger, you see my life? I had one coach at my club coaches meeting, I gave the same presentation, and he said, well, I heard as long as they can say dog, cat, fish back to you, they're fine to play. So, well, I haven't seen that in any of my medical journals, but you know, if that's what you've been using, here's what's going to happen. That kid is going to go back in the field. Something happens to him. Now the referee says, coach, I told you that kid was injured. And the parents say, what? You knew he was injured? He told you he was injured and you let my son go back in the game? And that's your lawsuit. The minute it's suspected, the minute that word comes out of anyone's mouth, that's when liability starts.
So you're suggesting at that point, you take him out of the game and leave him out of the game and make him come back with the doctors?
I'm not suggesting
You're
for your own protection.
Anybody, yeah, okay.
And
If you're saying,
realistically,
let's check him, and you check, and he's fine.
unless you're an MD that can check them on the side.
You're actually making us doctors, basically.
Right, well, I'm telling you not to
You
pay
can't be a
doctor.
doctor, you gotta just tell him to take him out.
I'm telling you,
Allow that.
on my team, one of my parents is a pediatrician. So when we have bumps and bruises, she comes over, and if she's at the game, she checks him out. She says, you know what, she's fine. I taped up her ankle. You know, if it's her own kid, I'm like, well, your mom says you're fine. She's a doctor. Unless you have a doctor sitting on your sideline saying, no, this kid is absolutely fine. I have no questions about it. Not even thinking there's a potential for concussion. I need no more information. 100% this kid's ready to play. And that doctor better put it in writing. At halftime, you know, that's when you're assuming liability. And that's exactly what we don't want you as coaches to do, is play physician. We don't need anyone playing physician. There's plenty of people who are dying to see concussion patients in their clinic. Yes.
I have a question for you. Back to your chart on symptoms, headache, nausea. Is your advice to associate that with a concussion-causing event?
Well, okay, this is,
If a kid just
yeah, this is
throws
a
up,
good question.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're doing the conditioning thing, and it's the first day back from summer break, and your kid starts throwing up, and you haven't done any contact, okay, probably not. Probably the kid is dehydrated, maybe he had McDonald's before,
they
you
ate a
know.
bag of donuts before the
Right,
game.
okay, so
what,
this is,
the worst case follow-up to Tim's question, what happens if during the game, when a kid throws up on the field because it's hot, the referee sends him off with a medical red card?
But referees aren't looking typically, you know, let's all be realistic. This is an evolving awareness of, you know, concussion.
But my question is, you're trying to associate it with an event,
Well-
not the symptoms by themselves.
right, well,
But
here's the
there are
thing.
going to be visual symptoms that a referee's going to key on. They're not going to necessarily be the plumbing.
And the thing is, you may miss the event. This is what, you know, as a coach, you turn around to talk to a player that just came out, and, you know, there's an elbow to the head over here, the ref missed it, you missed it, and the kid keeps playing. You hear it all the time. Coach is tugging my shirt, but you don't really see it happening. That's why we're telling you that if the kid throws up, he needs to come off the field. Now you need to say, did anything happen? That's when you can start as a coach really asking the questions, because with these kids, they're not going to say, Coach, I believe I have a concussion. That never happens.
So, I mean, I'm trying to think how this is going to play out, and this has happened to me before. A kid throws up, comes off. I'm going to ask her, you know, why'd you throw up? Did you get hit or anything? Did you hit the ground or anything? She says, no, I ate a bag of donuts before the game.
Okay,
And all
well,
the donuts coming back. So then I can put the player, after she takes a break, gives some fluid, she's fine, I can put her back in the
well,
game.
I mean, if you're
That's
talking
reality.
about,
I mean,
it happens, and I mean, really, this is not, I wish I could give you something that says that these things all occur. It has to be a judgment call. Okay, if you see white powdered sugar all over the ground, and she tells you she ate a bag of donuts, then maybe that's what happened. If you ask her, you need to ask, because usually, I want to say 98% of the time, it's not going to just be a kid comes off and starts vomiting and uses concussion. They'll have a little bit of dizziness. They'll have a little bit of blurred vision. They'll say, I don't remember what happened a few minutes ago, or whose ball is, you know, like they have other symptoms. Very, very rare occasions, only one system in.
is it relevant to ask them whether their head hit the ground or hit somebody's knee or
Of
something?
course, I mean, anything like that can be telling, but again, it could be they've headed, I don't know, a very active game. They've headed 10 balls in the past 15 minutes, and now they're just feeling a little bit, I don't feel so good. You know, all it takes is one ball, a punt that's coming high and maybe they use the top of their head instead of, their forehead, proper technique, and then that can give them a headache. So they may say, no, I haven't been hit, but you have to ask a lot of questions at that point. And really, if they're really dehydrated to the point where they're throwing up, you probably don't want them in the game anyways. That's just from a sports safety perspective.
I thought it was on the field and it was contact. And I was there and I saw it and I kind of went like this, but I looked at her and she was, I'm fine. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm fine. Little did I know, when she got to the sideline, she started shaking. The coach said to her, you okay? She goes, I don't know, I'm shaking. My head's a little like bubble gum. He goes, you're okay, go out and play. Played the entire rest of the game.
Right.
The next day, she was throwing up, she was seeing double, took her to the hospital, had a concussion.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's what happens.
if a referee, I think if a referee sees a hard enough hit where he's concerned, shouldn't even be up to the coach, it should be like, hey, hard enough hit, the kid's kind of acting wobbly.
And that's what
Yeah.
we're
That's
expecting
it.
from the referee.
You have to remember, it's the kids.
Right.
If, for example, someone gets a ball in the face, take them out, just to look, check them, check for symptoms, everything checks out, would you still do a form, or would you,
Well, here's
how
the
would you
thing,
manage
if
that?
you're doing a form, they're not going back in.
Well, yeah, I realize
Okay,
that.
so, again, it's a little bit of a judgment call. I mean, it depends. I was at Weston Cup, and my player, who was a real tall player for me, she took a ball, the girl must have, I don't even know how she got it off the ground, but she was maybe 3 feet away. And I just saw that girl go, like flying backwards, hit the ground. I don't know if her head hit when she went out, but it was a hard hit, and I knew that because I saw what happened. Now, as a coach, you have to use a little bit of judgment. The girl was only 3 feet away, that ball was coming pretty hard, and she came off and told me I had dizziness. I mean, a ball to the face, if the kid says I'm dizzy, that's it, that's a concussion. I mean, they're not gonna take a ball to the face and feel 100% fine. Now, is it possible that they say I feel fine and they don't? Of course, but, I mean, I think you have to kind of ask them more as a coach. You can't say, you all right? You're fine, aren't you? Like, you're fine, you wanna go back in, right? Yeah? You gotta
I'm
be,
just asking because, for example,
It's
if they get the
general
ball in the
judgment.
face, obviously it's gonna hurt at first.
Right.
My thought process would be hold them out for a while, see, if, do the test and whatnot. And if there's no signs, maybe not do the form, or should we do the form
no,
anyways?
you can't.
I mean, keep it, no, I'm saying, keep it now,
Keep it
as a
out.
precaution,
Right.
They're gonna
even
go
though
back
there's
in.
no symptoms.
Right, so, I mean, there's a reasonableness with everything that we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not doctors, we're not gonna be sitting here prescribing you for every scenario, because that's like everything, the game doesn't allow that. But you pull the player off, one, you don't have a lot of time, because you still got a game to play. And if you're coaching and you're assistant coach, someone's gotta tend to the player. Checking them out, sitting them for a while, asking questions, someone's gonna be working on that. If the player's got any level of not quite there, not quite sure, the form's the least of your problem, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if I gotta administer and say, you're done, just relax, take your shin guards off, cool down, because you're not gonna be back in the game. That's one thing, right? But don't make it the biggest thing of bringing them back in, and don't bring them fast, because you really
My
get
thought
a
is,
chance.
do we pull a form on any scenario, or do we wait? Like, my thought would be, let's send them out the game,
Yeah.
if they check out throughout the time, then
Well,
the form needed.
it's gonna come, there's some obvious questions, right? Do they exhibit any of the symptoms? If yes, okay, it's not on that.
Yeah.
If they're clean, I just think, I'm not gonna put them back in just for their own welfare, but I don't think they had something. But you gotta tell all this up front to your parents,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This can't be a surprise when suddenly, why didn't you come over? Because they come running, the moment their kid didn't make it the rest of the game, and you killed our team. I don't wanna hear it, right? We got a lot of people saying
What we say is, as a general rule, when you go home, if you get in your car and you're still thinking about that one hit and did I do the right thing? And if you need to do whatever's gonna make you sleep well at night. Now, I showed you the picture of Zachary Lystead, who now is in a wheelchair because of his football coach. I doubt very seriously that his football coach sleeps well at night, or he shouldn't. I mean, I don't think most people would feel very guilty about that. Now, he didn't do it on purpose, maybe he was, a lot of things play into that. But you need to make sure that when you go home, you say, I handled that situation correctly. And you're not thinking about it when you're driving back from the field, because if you are, then you need to check out what you're doing.
I got 3 administrative questions. One, when you get the doctor's note, should it be on their letterhead or on a description pad saying he's allowed to play. I don't think it's, I mean, somebody could just write a doctor's name on the doctor's form. So you're
On
referring,
the letterhead, we have, in our clinic, we use forms that, have our official logo and their letterhead and,
we should just make somebody just sign that back.
I mean,
Okay.
so high schools don't accept no less than.
All right, number two, a lot of our parents do online registering, it's our first year doing it, but a lot of them are still doing the paper. Is there an addendum that we can get off the FYSA website for concussion, so when a parent comes and signs the form?
There's an informed parental consent under the form section on the FYSA website, and we sent out before you even started registration to tell you that it had to be a mandatory part of your registration this year.
Okay, so
So-
I'm like a brand new president, so I'm.
Yeah,
got
so
that email. Okay,
it was sent out it was sent out.
All right,
As soon as it came out, it was there, and the forms are available on the FYSA website. Just go under forms, you type concussion, and the forms will come up.
all right, and then is there a copy of the law on there, because there's some coaches that are gonna fight me on this. and this-
I'll give you a copy. I'm gonna have business cards. We're in Miami, but we're readily available. Again, we shared this law. We really made an effort to put it forth. We collaborated in the writing of it, so we're very big on telling people about it, enforcing it, and educating people on it. So if you have, I have a parent call me from Tampa because one of the coaches I met in Tampa at a football coaches meeting got in an argument with this coach, and he said, call this woman in Miami. She'll explain to you why I won't put your son in the game. And I get those phone calls, we get the emails, we get emails asking if we think certain kids should play. Any questions you have, let us know. Let me know. I'll give you my card, my phone number. I think FYSA has asked for this PowerPoint. If you want it, I'll email it to you. If you want stuff to hand out to your parents, I'll email it to you. I think I set up 2 webinars today to do for certain clubs. If you want that, we'll do it for you. We're here to help you, and we'll do as much as we can. And I think it's going to take time. This is going to be an interesting year with this new, it's going to be a learning curve, but it'll all work itself out. Yes.
In one of the league meetings for one of the leagues we play in, we were told, and I actually agree with it on my side, that if a referee comes over and says, I think this player might have a concussion symptom, and takes him over to the coach, that there would be no coming back in the game. We should just tell
And I
our
think
we should tell our coaches,
I think that's
period.
probably the correct decision. Again, just think about how this is gonna play out, worst case scenario. That if something happens to that kid, and the parent finds out that you knew that something potentially could go wrong, and you still put him back in, that's exactly what the charge says. You're increasing that child's risk to bodily harm. You know that he's at risk because he's already potentially injured, and you put him back in and said, hopefully nothing happens, we'll see how this goes. So I think that's a wise decision.
And as I said, I'm in favor of that, okay, I'm on your side. And we all know that the coaches are gonna say, it's fine, I can't put him back in? No, you can't, is what the league told us. But I guess my question more overall, that puts the onus on the referees to basically say, coaches still have responsibility, yes, if they see something that's going on. But if a referee is gonna be the one that gives basically your medical red cards, is that statewide, is that how you enforce?
The referees have been given the same concussion protocol that all the coaches had to sign. They do their background checks through FYSA. They had to agree to the same protocol and everything that each one of your coaches are having to really agree to when they do their background check. That just as she said, there's sometimes when you turn around as a coach to say something to a player, you don't see what happened on the field because you turned around to talk to that coach, and that could be the time when it has, and the referee is the one that's.
I'm not saying that there should be ways around it. I agree, if anyone sees a concussion syndrome, my daughter has had them, that they need to come directly off the field and they should not be put back in.
They
So
should.
the problem's gonna be, I think the law is good, but I think, I would like to see it
The referees are
described.
being educated.
But I guess I'm just concerned with enforcement, because you know there's gonna be controversy over it. I'm just concerned that it's enforced the same way everywhere, because I'm not sure that every league or everything is gonna say, if your referee says
We're on
he
a
thinks he
journey.
sees something.
Okay, the long story short is, we're on a journey,
Right,
right?
right.
This isn't gonna be perfect this year. There's gonna be trials and tribulations, because referees are also coming into this, so they're not all gonna be consistent, which is operatively where we want it to be. But, if I see that a child exhibits behaviors as a referee that is inconsistent with how I watch them play in this match, and suddenly they're staggering a little bit, or they're doing something, and even though you don't see it, coach, you need to go take this player and get him
Well,
checked.
what I'm concerned with to some degree is, not so much in my senior league games for my better game, but say I've got a 14-year-old kid doing a U8 game,
I understand.
okay? I just wanna make sure that I'm not putting them in the responsibility that they are the lone guardian here, cause you know what's gonna happen.
Understood.
And once again, I agree totally, they should
The
come off and
coaches
not
are
come back in.
the coaches are ultimately the responsible
Unfortunately,
party.
those situations will occur, and this is why we're here, right? Because the hope is that, and why we wrote this law, and why we know that this year, I mean, we're getting ready for football season, and we see almost 25 kids every day from just football concussion, and just high school. We're getting ready for that. We're getting ready for everything that's gonna happen for it, but what you have to understand is through the education, and I had this slide that says education is best prevention. But once it's common knowledge that a kid is injured, he can't go back in the game, I'm not even gonna question it. You know, once that becomes common knowledge, and it will, it's gonna take time, then there's not gonna be, the referee says, coach, you gotta take this kid out, and he's like, all right, I got you, I understand. You know, it's not, it's a learning curve. It's gonna be, not everyone knows what a concussion is.
We've instructed all our competitive coaches that if referee says they got to come out where they have even the slightest consent, they're not coming back in. And we're gonna do the same thing with our recreational coaches. I just wanna make sure
And I think
everybody's being told the same thing, because I don't
we
wanna
went
have.
around to all of the 8 annual general meetings for each region. And we shared that with all of them in each region. Because I personally went around to each AGM and we talked about concussions and we had some very lively discussions. Everything was said at the same one, each one. And we are sharing all this information with FSR and telling them that they need to educate their referees as well.
It's just
to
gonna be,
ensure that it's safe. It's
difficult.
gonna be very
It's gonna be difficult
difficult.
to filter it down to a 14